Well, hi there. This is Pastor Matt, Pastor Mario from Living Hope Church, and we're wanting to provide just some midweek thoughts, reflections in this time of Advent, because in the midst of the hustle and bustle, in the midst of the concerns of coronavirus and that we can easily just lose track of this season, of this time of Advent. And for those of you who don't know, Advent, it means coming. And it's a time when Christians reflect extensively for the 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas about the coming of Jesus and what that means. And so if you're not a follower of Jesus, but you've stumbled across this or somehow came across this, just know that there are some wonderful themes that are part of the Christmas time. And we are leading into the 3rd week of joy. The first one is hope. The second which we're in the midst of peace, and then joy, and then love, all leading up to, these are all themes, all truths that are part of the coming of Jesus. And so we just want to offer some thoughts here midweek or part of the week leading up to this Sunday of joy. We just want to provide a bridge from peace to joy. And so if you have your Bibles with you, we encourage you to open up to Isaiah 55. Isaiah 55. And we're just going to walk through that. Pastor Mara and I, we're just going to dialogue back and forth. If there's a question or a thought, it's just going to be, so we're going to invite you into this conversation, this dialogue with us as we walk through it. And we want to offer some reflection questions for you about this bridge between peace and joy. So let me begin Isaiah chapter 55. It begins with an invitation. God says this: "Come, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and he who has no money, come, buy and eat. Come, buy wine and milk without money and without price." God offers an invitation to each of us to enter the season of Advent, to reflect on what he has done throughout human history. And so to each of you, we want you to know the voice of God is saying, come. Come. He invites us to drink when we're thirsty without price, that God will pay the price for the waters, so anybody may come. And we're going to see that this focuses on the Holy One of Israel, the Messiah, who is Jesus. Let me continue on, because there's a question here. After this invitation to drink, for your thirst to be satisfied with water and with wine and with milk, God says this: "Why do you spend money for that which is not bread, and do your labor for that which does not satisfy?" So often we work towards things that we think are going to satisfy, think are going to pay off, when in actuality they don't. The promise of what Christians would call sin, the promise of having joy and delight in something, in some kind of action, when we work and labor towards that, we find out that it wasn't worth it. It leaves us still thirsty. It leaves us unsatisfied. And so God is asking, why do you labor for that? Why do you labor for things that take you away from me, instead of coming to me, the fountain of living waters, where you can drink and be satisfied? Do you have any?
No, yeah, I think that's really good, because just speaking about like what you said about peace, and this past Sunday talking about like in the new covenant that Jesus was going to establish, there's peace in forgiveness and everything that he provides. But also this question kind of probes us, if we're not feeling peace right now, because peace is provided in Jesus. That's a part of what he provides in the new covenant. And so if we're not experiencing that, just like a question like what you were saying, like it's begging the question, okay, where are we going to find our peace or try to find peace? And he says, like, why do you labor for things that don't satisfy? Like these things that you labor for don't have the ability to satisfy.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we may go to things for peace. And I don't know what it could be. It could just be loads of mantra of things to go to for peace. But, with the hopes and expectations that it will provide peace. And maybe it will for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
but it's not the long-lasting, substantial peace that is given in Jesus.
Yeah, so as you were talking, Mara, that one thing that comes to mind, one of the things that many of us have tried to work towards peace is to protect us from getting sick with COVID, right? Many of us have thought, I need to sanitize every bit of my house, everything that comes in. I want to stay home and protect. And while those are good and wise steps, we find that there are many stories out there, people who did try to protect themselves, but they still got it. And so there's really, no matter what we labor for, we can get very concerned about, if I just protect myself enough, I'll be at peace. And the reality is that we all have this hunger, this hole in our heart that we'll never find peace, no matter how much we try to protect ourselves, no matter how much we try to disinfect from the virus. Only God is the best protection. And sometimes God allows hard things to come in so that he can point to a greater peace, right? And so those people who have labored to try to protect themselves and still have gotten the virus, I just want to offer the paradigm, the way to perceive that God is calling you to see him as the greater peace, that he will see you through these things that we fear. And he can bring us and lead us to peace. And we see that, and what we'll see later in this chapter is that bridge from peace to joy, that when we're at peace, when we're really experiencing and entering into the peace that God offers through Jesus, we can then experience joy. And because when we see that God is a God of joy, and I'll be talking about that this coming Sunday, about how the God that our Heavenly Father who sent Jesus, his son, and took him through those things that he did through the cross, it was all because of joy, to bring us joy along with the peace. And so looking at verse Isaiah 55, we'll just continue on in verse 3. Again, the invitation, incline your ear and come to me. Hear that your soul may live. And I will make with you an everlasting covenant. Now, let me just, for those of you who may not be familiar with this term covenant, businesses have contracts, right? These are formal agreements, and each one and each side says, I will do this, and this side will do this and this. We will partner some way. It's a contract. A covenant is like a contract, but it's much deeper and it's more relational. Marriages are not contracts, they are covenants. And so just to give you an analogy, that they are much, signify a deeper relational kind of connection between two parties. And so when God says that he will make with you an everlasting covenant, he is saying, I want relationship with you. I want to come to be with you and have that covenant, that connection with you. And then he makes reference, my steadfast, sure love for David. And here's the connection to Jesus, is that God promised King David, one of the most famous kings in the Old Testament of God's people Israel, that David would never lack a man, an heir on the throne. And that's ultimately fulfilled in Jesus, who came from the lineage of David. And so when he makes reference to that, this is a connection point to Jesus. So let me just ask, are there anything?
No, I think that's really good, because I was going to say, so in other words, this is a very significant connection point to establish where we find our peace and our joy.
Right.
And so I think that's just such a great connection point, because whenever you read the Old Testament, you'll see this. He'll mention David, or the branch of David, or the root of David. Like we read, what was it, Sunday? The root of David, or the branch of David, which is, it always speaks to Jesus, the coming Messiah. So I think that's a really good.
Yeah, because as we read in Israel's history, all the kings that followed David, even his son Solomon, did not fully live for the Lord. There's clear indications that that these kings, even the few that did follow God, that they are not this righteous branch. They are not this one from whom God is making this eternal, everlasting covenant with his people. So we see that the kings that came after him are not who's referenced here, but Jesus is the king that is an eternal covenant is established through him. And that starts with his birth. So let me read on. God says, "Behold, I made him a singular man, a witness to the peoples, a leader and commander for the peoples. Behold, you shall call a nation that you do not know." Again, God is talking to his people Israel at this time. There's a lot of turmoil going on. And he says, "Behold, you shall call a nation that you do not know, and a nation that did not know you shall run to you because of the Lord your God and of the Holy One of Israel." This is, again, for he has glorified you. Again, that Holy One of Israel is ultimately fulfilled in Jesus. He is the Holy One of Israel, the Messiah. Again, verse 6, God again calls forth this invitation. He says, seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord that he may have compassion on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. There's that invitation for any of us to come to God. Sometimes many of us ask God, where are you in the midst of COVID and all the challenges in our country right now? And, part of the problem, part of the reason why we don't see God is that many of us are not seeking him at all. We don't want him around. We're not trying to live in his ways. And so he invites us, hey, come back to me. And when somebody turns away from God and his ways, whose ways are completely good, if you're not following the good ways, you're following bad ways. And so that's where he calls, let the wicked person return to me. Those who are not seeking God at all, come to me. Come to me, the fountain of living waters, and experience my peace so you can have joy. So did you have any?
No, I think that's just really... I thought I had something, but I don't.
It's okay.
I thought I had something in my mind, but I was like, I don't know if that's actually relevant.
Well, that's okay. I mean, all of us can relate to this season.
This is what I was going to say.
Okay, great.
This is important for Advent, because Advent, like this chapter is good for Advent, because Advent invites us, like Pastor Matt was saying, invites us into, like we're busy. Like for all of the year, we're really busy. And every day God, is inviting us to spend time with him. And I think we'd be lying if we took advantage of that every day. But the Advent season is like this really prominent time to like really be intentional to seek after him. Like to do exactly what he's like, seek me while I may be found, and come to the waters. So this is an invitation for you.
I mean, think about this, the creator of all things, the one who all he had to do was speak, and the universe in all its depth and the words escaping me, in its greatness came into being. And that God, your creator, invites you to come to him, to seek him out and to find the peace that he offers, because what follows is joy. And so I want to just skip forward a few verses here.
Absolutely.
Because in verse 8, here's a well-known verse for many Christians that we point to when we are living in uncertain times. And this is verse 8. It says, God says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." In the midst of God inviting you to seek him out, to come to him, that many of us think, God, what are you doing at this time? And it's just a reminder that God has a much bigger mindset, paradigm, a viewpoint, so much greater than us. And it's all based on truth. We can try to get a big picture, but we could get elements wrong about it. But God, when he as he looks around over all his creation, he knows exactly what's going on, and he is not mistaken in any of that.
Yeah.
And so when we call out to him, when we seek him, we are seeking the one who knows. He knows what's going on. And that brings us peace, knowing that we can trust in the one who knows and is not making a mistake at all.
Yeah. I think that it reminds me of what we talked about in the youth, and it's kind of off topic, but it's a little bit of, it could be tied in to like this idea that Jesus is praying for us or interceding for us.
Yeah.
This idea that Jesus knows what is happening and he knows what God's will is for this time, for us in this time. And he's pleading on our behalf, even if we don't feel like God is near or whatever the case may be. Like, it just reminded me of how some of the youth were just like, this is really encouraging, really reassuring. That Jesus knows what's going on. And I think even in that passage, it says that like the Spirit intercedes with groanings that are even too deep for words. That we can't even comprehend or fathom God's will for this moment, for our life. And so God knows.
He does.
He knows.
And I was just thinking of younger kids. This has been such a time of turmoil and things changing, and the world as they know it just getting all confuddled. It makes me want to make up a silly word that sounds confusing, just to talk about maybe what the children have been experiencing. I know my kids have gone through just that time of disorientation. And, for me as an adult, it's like, this is brand new, but I think, well, there's some things that there are still dependable things that we can still do, live our lives, that sort of thing on some level. But I've got a much higher view, right? And more life experience to draw from. But their world as they've known it has been all mixed up. And that's where that God knows. God knows what you're going through. He knows what's going on. And he is able to bring peace in the midst of all this confusion and things getting canceled and disappointments. That God is the one who brings peace, but he can also take that peace and lead you to joy. And so the next section of Isaiah 55, God talks about how his word, how he says he's going to do this, it will happen. And he says, for as the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return there, but water the earth, making it bring forth and sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word that goes forth from my mouth, it shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose and shall succeed in the thing for which I sent. That's another thing that brings us peace, is knowing that we can be confident in God, that when he says he's going to do something, he will do it. And also the fact that he is the creator, nothing can stop him. So he is able, out of any circumstance, to bring peace that leads to joy. And this is, we come to the final few verses here of Isaiah 55 that make this connection between peace and joy very clear. And it says this, for you shall go out in joy and be led forth in peace. That is God's desire, is that he would lead us out into joy. And so I think we can reflect. I think that's good food for reflection, to just take a moment and to recall the season from peace into joy, that God has done so much. He cares for us, that we would experience those things. So I think we would both just encourage you guys, like as you are with your families or however you're watching this on your phone or tablet or whatever the case may be, set apart some time, even if your family is not all with you right now, set apart some time between now and Sunday, maybe just like 5-10 minutes, and just ask each other, when was a good time? When was a hard time that the Lord provided peace, and how did we respond when we received the peace? Did we have joy? Because I just think it's such a good food to know that, like,
we can remember.
Yeah.
We're very forgetful.
That's right, and that's why we need to remember. So may you be blessed by some of walking through Isaiah 55 again, like Pastor Mario said. We encourage you to read through it at least once between now and Sunday, just to prepare your hearts and to recall what God has done as we get ready to enter into this week of joy from this week of reflecting on His peace. Absolutely. So God bless you, and may you be blessed by this time.
Blessings.